to deal in society and how we help each other, I think it'd be a lot more helpful than just trying to make some laws change. Because we're just not going to learn to respect ourselves as long as we individually want to be different than the other. So, I don't know, I just like to explore that stuff.
You're giving me a lot to think about. And on the one hand, I'm hearing how the border, how you're understanding the border from specific places, right? A specific moment in your life on one side of the border and on another, right? But on the other hand, I'm also hearing you express an idea of the border specifically with this painting, where you're relating to the idea of being a contemporary artist, where there is a form of indigenous, there is a form of expression that goes past a particular place. And this painting has part of that history as well in it.
Right.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I kind of got lost there with the question.
So when this piece was shown, for example, at the Hurt, right, as a part of Remix, right?
It wasn't shown there.
Oh, I thought you said this was at the Hurt.
It will be going to
It's going to the
Yes, after the show.
You had another piece that was part of Remix.
I have 3 pieces.
Oh, 3.
Yeah. And then they selected the pieces not based on their content, but based on my background. So they selected my work for what I do as an artist, not necessarily my indigenous background. Which was, I like that. You know, they selected me for what I do. And they allowed me to show what I like, which is what I want people to see. And yeah, and this is what I do. You know? So I love when people select me for pieces of shows like this. And yeah, so I thought it was pretty fair. Selecting me for what I like. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question.
That does. That really does begin to get there. Can you maybe help me articulate this? Do you know the train of thought? I'm thinking about, I feel like in many ways this work, on one hand, presents boundaries, but on the other hand, it also breaks boundaries down, right? Beyond something that we call the border, right? And I think that's a really interesting tension this particular painting holds.
Well, it's just, it's my experience, pretty much, having lived in the border. I don't want to say that in general everybody does happen, but most of my friends that I have in the border, we all pretty much live in the same lifestyle or way of living, of crossing the border every day. It was a common thing. It was never any problems. It was going from Phoenix to Scottsdale, pretty much. So the dynamics just changed. I mean, I moved out of Phoenix. I moved out of the border 10 years ago. I go back every 3 months to visit my family, but since I left, a lot of things have changed. Since September 11th, crossing the border, it's a lot more difficult. It's not as easy as it used to be. Even if it changed things now, it doesn't change that my experience was what it was. I don't have the current experience of what's happening on the border. My family does. But even at that, I don't really find it right now an interest in going back to understand what's happening so I can apply it in my work. I think part of me trying to be a happy person in life, it's exploring positive things. I feel every personality is built to hold in their heart what they can. And if I were to explore the human drama that's problematic, I think it would just touch me in a way that it just make me an unhappy person. The more you see death, for example, the more, I don't know, just something clicks on your head that's different. So I just figured that by psychologically, if I explore the opposite, I'll just be a happy person maybe. I don't know, just everybody could just like decide what they like, you know. It's just what I like to explore.
Hopefully we won't have a camera malfunction again. We're continuing the interview. And one of the things that I want to comment on is, Fausto, you're sharing so much with us. You're really not only trusting Jennifer and I right now, but you're asking the audience, right, to put forth a lot of trust as well. And I want to honor that. And I want to thank you for putting that out there.
Oh, thank you.
You had mentioned you had a question.
Yeah, I was wondering, how do you respond when people label you as a Chicano artist or assume that you're going to be associated with these horror issues when that's not what you're looking for out? How do you deal with that?
I don't really, I mean, it's just a matter of explaining how we're different, I guess. I mean, a lot of my friends are Chicanos. And we always talk about these issues. In fact, for example, and you know, it's not a discussion. It's more like trying to understand, because they don't even know exactly where they stand either. Just like I don't know where I stand. All of us want to find out how is it that where we're from and all these kind of things. So, like I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I'm not sure how true this is, but it makes sense to me. When one of my friends at Chicano was painting the Virgin of Guadalupe in his work, and we were talking about this, and I was like saying, well, in Mexico we don't really paint the Virgin of Guadalupe that often in our paintings. Why do you? And he said, because we're outside of our country, we tend to use her as a form of like the icon of our country in another country. It's a form of pride. We're from here, that's Our Lady. But when you're in Mexico, you don't know you're in Mexico. Why would you be speaking about in Mexico while you're in Mexico? So that made sense to me. And I think that part of the Chicano culture is from them bringing back their culture into another country. And for me, it's not, because I'm just like it was in Mexico. So I feel that that's just a little bit of an explanation of how I find it. So when they ask me if I'm Chicano, I just feel like I'm not. That's all. I mean, even though I'm Mexican American, most Chicanos could probably be from Mexican descent living in the United States. But I was from American descent living in Mexico. So it's different, I think. And it makes a difference culturally. To the way we speak, the way we do things, the way we read. The culture is different. You know? So if anything, I'm probably learning a little bit more by being an American being here. And I feel like my views of marriage and my views of I don't know, just things that click on me that I feel like I'm changing sometimes and wanting to understand my Mexican background and how it's different in the United States. So it's interesting to learn. Just things like that.
I'm really interested in the process that you're describing. And I know I've asked about this once, and I'm going to ask again and frame it a little different way. About you paint as a way of learning about who you are. And this painting is one part of who you are. There are many other parts. What are the parts of you that you want to talk about in this painting? What are the parts of you that you want to talk about that aren't in this painting? What are these parts of you that you're bringing up?
I felt that when I explained my interest in relationships, that's what I was trying to do. I mean, this is just more than just my places that I've been from, but I also wanted to incorporate the rest of my work, which is about relationships, and that's what I was trying to explain earlier. And then there comes technique. Oh, this is another thing. My background is in graphic design. And before all Macintosh and all those things, that we were doing graphic design by cutting up paper. So we'll make posters and all those kinds of things by using Exacto knives, just like a drafter would do. And I graduated in graphic design, but by then the way we did graphic design was different. So I continued applying all those things that I loved about graphic design to my work, which is what I do. So that's another reason which I like doing what I do. I used to do oil paintings in college, and by having moved to Arizona, I didn't have a studio back then, so I was living in a house with white carpet. So I found it really hard for me to start painting. So I just started playing with paper, and just kind of became my medium after that. And it's still constantly changing. I feel that this particular painting is more neat than other ones that I have. It's more particularly cut, straight, beautiful, not much splattering. And I found that my personality doesn't really allow me to do this, even though mentally I sit down and cut for hours. But so I go back and forth, like I feel like I get like literally splattery, and then I go back to like this. And it takes me forever, and it drives me crazy, and then I go back to splatter. and it's just like, it's like a mental state of like, trying to stay sane, I guess. And it was more difficult when I was employed. I was working as a full-time employee at Arizona State University while I was trying to be an artist. And when you're doing that, it makes a conflict. There's a little time to paint, so you're constantly thinking what you want to do and try to do it really quick because you gotta go back to work. And I decided to be a full-time artist, and in the last 2 years and a half, it's been more of a free. I don't have to force myself to paint. It's just more of an experiment. Every second, even if I stay home up late without coming to paint, I'm constantly thinking,